Sooner fans, Longhorn Nation, welcome to episode 106 of the Bevo Podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, University of Texas and the University of Oklahoma. I'm here with my man, Kevin Miller. I am John Whitson. Kevin, did you watch the women's national team against Canada in the CONCACAF Gold Cup semifinals last night?
You know, I didn't watch all of it. I did see the ending of it. Your son Jeffrey texted me. He was like, "Hey, do you see this field that they're playing on? It's horrible."
Okay.
I'm like, "Oh no!" I'm like, "Well, okay, where's the game at?" I'm thinking it's somewhere in Central America, something like that. And I looked it up.
San Diego, California.
And not just San Diego, but it's a brand new facility. This place has been open a year.
It wasn't the field's fault. It was raining,
Yeah.
As my dad from Eastern Oklahoma would say, it was raining like a cow pissing on a flat rock. And it was a torrential rain. And I cannot believe that, A, they didn't postpone it, delay it, do something. By the end of the game, it had gotten a little better, but the first half was absurd. It was ridiculous. There were so many instances of players outrunning the ball.
Yeah,
because
the ball just stops.
The ball just stops. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. That being said, I was incredibly tough on the women's national team following the World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. They were babies. They did not seem to care about the game. It was a bad showing for them. If this team that showed up last night, that went out in that rain and didn't complain, and went out in those conditions, and all they did was compete against a huge rival in Canada, if that's the team that they're taking to the Olympics, I am for this team, because those girls were legit last night in terms of competing. Like, you have to throw strategy out the window in those conditions. There was no strategy. It was simply who's going to last, who's going to endure, who's going to show up and just put their heart out on there and their bodies on the line. And the goalie, Alyssa Nair, for the U.S. was a beast. She saved 3 kicks and penalty kicks, 3 goal kicks and penalty kicks, and scored her own penalty kick. She was fantastic. It was gritty. It was gutsy. That's what sports are about. I made my girls watch the replay this morning because they got to see what players do, because sometimes conditions aren't going to be any good. And in this case, the conditions were terrible. And all they did was step up and beat a really good Canadian team in some really crappy conditions. And it was nice to be an American again. That's what I'm talking about.
You mentioned the fact that they were, you didn't like how they showed themselves at the World Cup. It seemed like they were kind of stuck in between 2 eras, right? They still had all those legendary players. A lot of them were still hanging around while still trying to transition to the younger players. Seems like that transition is going better than it was then.
That's absolutely right. So holdovers from the old era include Alex Morgan, a little bit of Lindsey Horan, and Rose Lavelle. Outside of that, it is a bunch of new faces. Yeah. A lot of new faces.
And the thing about Morgan, she's been around forever, right? But she doesn't have that kind of, she's not one of those crazy outgoing personalities like the other ones have. She doesn't have as strong of the personality. She's a leader, clearly. But, the other players that are gone, they kind of demanded a leadership role in the team that made it hard to shift control of the team to the younger players. Does that make sense?
You're exactly right. No, you're exactly right. Alex Morgan is a lead by example kind of player. I mean, she's, for lack of a better word, I don't even want to use this word, but as liberal as the next player. But so many players are. But she didn't wear it on her sleeve. She doesn't wear it on her sleeve.
She doesn't have a personality. She might have certain views, but she
doesn't make it. She doesn't throw it in your face or in anybody's face. She goes and plays soccer. This lady's had a baby like less than 18 months ago, and she recovers and she works so hard. She's an absolute beast. But you've got Trinity Rodman out there, Sophia Smith. There's just a lot of good young, to your point, a lot of good young players. And that's where U.S. soccer needs to be. They need to be in the young space. It's time to
Correct.
roll that over. I think you're going to see a completely different team in the Olympics. And I'm looking forward to that. But dude, they've got a final. Golly, I should have looked up who they were playing. They've got a final.
Brazil.
They got a final against Brazil on Sunday. So we're about to see it. To your point, is this young group, this young crop of players, or what they've got to create is that air of invincibility, right? That so many U.S. women's national teams have had. That the Oklahoma Sooners softball team has. That the volleyball team for Texas has. This air of invincibility that says, dude, nobody has a chance against us.
Yeah.
And they've got to reclaim that. And I think once they do, it could be another long run of women's soccer. But if they don't, it could be the start of a level of parity, which we haven't seen in the sport in a while. And as a U.S. fan, you don't really want to see that. I mean, Texas volleyball doesn't want parity. They want the same level of dominance that they've had for 2 years. Same thing with OU softball. OU losing their 72nd game, in a 71-game win streak, losing game 72. That's great, and everybody's going to talk about it. But OU doesn't want that. They don't want the parity. And
no,
I
don't want anybody to think they have a chance. They don't want anybody to have any hope. They want you to go into this game knowing that you've already lost. Just you've lost the mental edge already.
And it's like what we're seeing with Alabama, right? It's like what we're seeing. Kalen DeBoers eliminates 50% of the feeling of invincibility that Alabama football brought to the field.
Correct.
When you looked across the field and you saw Nick Saban, you were already down a touchdown, maybe 10 points. And you always thought something that would happen, like happened in the Auburn game this year, was going to happen because Nick Saban was on the other sideline. Kalen DeBoer doesn't bring that. It's not the same vibe. So
yeah,
it's
so fascinating Alabama football, by the way, just to seeing what happens within post Saban.
Oh, I can't wait. I mean, right? That's what we're eating the popcorn for, is to see. And look, y'all got beat by Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer can clearly, he can recruit.
He's a great coach, man.
He can game plan. He can do all of the things, but he's not Nick Saban, right? Yeah. And so it just changes the vibe. And that's going to be fun. Anyway, back to real quick, women's soccer. I think Sunday night is going to show us a lot. And I'm here for it, dude. I love watching women's soccer. It was a crap show at the World Cup, but to your point, a lot of those faces are gone. New faces are in. It's time to be an American again, and I'm for it. But before that, on March 9th, the University of Texas will play the University of Oklahoma in the final regular season game of Big 12 play for both schools, obviously. At 1:00. Here's what's on the line. All right. You have Big 12 seeding. So if if Texas loses, it will be a rematch against Oklahoma on Wednesday in the Big 12. If Texas wins and I think UCF or Cincinnati loses, then I think Texas has an opportunity to maybe even sneak into a bye. Is that right on the first day?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm so laser focused on this game between us on Saturday.
Yeah.
I don't know all the what ifs.
Dude, look, I was looking at stats. If you look at stats and you line them up on like points per game. Okay, so our record, just to recap, both of our records are 8-9. So we're playing for 500 in the Big 12. Okay. So first of all, we're already an 8-9 team, which just tells you how similar we are. Points per game is within a point, I think, in Texas's favor. Points allowed is within 2 points in Oklahoma's favor. Turnovers, almost identical. Rebounds, almost identical. Shooting percentage, almost identical. These teams are so similar in performance. Maybe not style, but the stats would bear out that it is style. So there is a lot riding on this game. I got NCAA seeding, 500 in conference play, classic recruiting, all of the things that go into that. That's what's happening and what's at stake on Saturday.
Yeah, man, it's pretty crazy. You guys were able to grind out that win against Cincinnati on Tuesday. right? Come from behind. Weren't you guys down about 10 points or so in the first half?
Dude, we were down 18 to the game started out 18-5. We were that's
Wow.
13 points against and
Yeah.
um I had given up. I'd given up on them. So I kind of flipped some channels, was watching some different stuff, and then the kids were trying to get to bed and Alice was going to go do something, and so I was like, "Oh, well, let me turn the game back on." And then it's like, "Oh, well, it's only like a 6-point game." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then we would make a little run and Cincinnati would inevitably hit a big shot. Is it oh golly, what's the guy with the funny name? Jizzy? Jiggle?
I
What?
I know who
I'm
you're
not
talking
making that
about, but I
up.
can't think of it. No, I know you're not. I know you're not. Yeah.
He's got like a funny name. And the dude just kept making shots and like extending their lead. And it just never felt like Oklahoma was going to ever kind of pull even until we did. And then we get in overtime. Jalen Moore had a heck of a game. It was all free throws. I think we had like 28 made free throws, which is amazing statistic. And yeah, so we held on. Anyway, it gets us to we're 8-9. Currently, bracketology has OU as a 10 seed, Texas as an 8 seed. And my thought is that this game hinges on, I think if OU loses to Texas, that those seeds stay the same, 8 and 10. I think if Oklahoma beats Texas, that they switch and OU snags the 8 seed and Texas falls to a 10 seed.
Okay, so
I
you do
do,
agree that we're both in.
yes, I do not think
So do I.
anything.
So do
I
I.
don't think anything can happen. Here's the deal with bracketology, right? Is at this point in the season, um, you are who you are, and it would take a in quotation marks a run by another team, but there's just not enough games left for another
No,
team to
there's
make
nothing
a run.
left. Yeah. Kansas State 7-10 in the conference, right behind um, OU and Texas. Cincinnati 6-11 in conference. UCF 6-11, and of course Oklahoma State and West Virginia at the bottom at 4-13
God,
in
OSU
conference.
OSU looks like they've given up. Oklahoma State looks like they
Yeah,
have completely given up. Like he's lost that team.
yeah, it's tough. It looked like they made a pretty good hire when they first got him, but man, it's really fallen apart the last couple of years for him.
The consensus though is that they're going to keep him another year because they don't want to spend the buyout on him. They'd rather reserve the money versus spending it on a buyout. They want to use it in NIL, both for basketball and football.
Okay, okay,
Is
man,
that isn't that fascinating that that's where
it
athletic
is.
directors are now? Is essentially general managers of professional athletes to the point
Yeah,
where they have to consider a buyout for a coach against NIL considerations?
yeah, it's crazy how the game has changed. We've talked about NIL a lot on here, and we'll see. I don't think it's going to stay the way it is now. Now, they're not going to end it, but I think eventually there'll be some sort of controlling way with it. I don't know how that happens, but it feels like something's got to give with it, right?
Well, I guess the Big Ten and the SEC are trying to coordinate to have a
Okay,
consistent NIL enforcement, at least at the conference level.
okay, I can see
Um,
that.
I can see that. I think that the idea must be that they feel comfortable enough in their position in the sport that it's not going to negatively impact recruiting.
Okay,
Um, but you wonder, right? Like if they were to put some sort of NIL restrictions, does that make the Big 12, the remaining Big 12s of the world? You think about like a Colorado under Dion. Does that make them give them a little bit more of a competitive advantage because the Big 12 doesn't enact tighter NIL restrictions?
potentially, with certain players, I think it will, but I still think, man, even now, even with NIL, right? The big schools are still getting the best players. Now, you're seeing schools like Missouri get a couple 5 stars that they wouldn't have gotten normally, right? Like Williams
Winery.
Guarneri
Yep.
may not have gone to Missouri before NIL, and the Green kid certainly wouldn't have left Oklahoma to go to Missouri. Like that would never happen before NIL. But for the most part, though, right? I mean, it's still, you know, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Oklahoma getting the best players.
Well, and that's when if you listen to certain segments of Oklahoma media, they will say that Oklahoma is struggling in NIL and it's going to negatively impact their football performance. And I guess there could be some truth to that. But Kevin, look at the recruiting rankings over the last 3 years. Oklahoma's not in a bad position from a standpoint of recruiting. We're talking 3 straight top 10 classes, a top 3 class last year, a top 7 or 8 class this year with the best defensive line haul they've ever had. And yes, they lost out to Winery. Is there more parity? Are there going to be options where people aren't? But still, their NIL has to be healthy enough that they're continuing to pour in an average over the last 3 years of top 5 classes.
And at the end of the day, right, players want to win games and go to the NFL. As long as you keep doing that, you will continue to get great players, regardless of NIL. Now, look, you have to have some sort of offering with NIL, right? You can't just say, oh, you just come and play and have a scholarship and that's it. Those days are long gone. But, you don't have to be handing out, bags of cash and guys making 7 figures a year to get players to go to Oklahoma or to go to Texas or really any school that has a winning tradition.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen it obviously at A&M. We've seen that NIL in and of itself doesn't work.
Correct. If you're just relying on NIL to get players, that's all you have to offer. It's not sustainable.
And we've seen it in college basketball too with the one and dones. There were a couple of instances where one and dones did work early on in that one and done era, that late 2000s, early teens with the Kentuckys of the world and things like that. But Kentucky hasn't won nor competed for a national championship since 2014.
No, they got that one title. I mean, they only got one title, right, under Calipari? Am I
I
wrong
think
about
so.
that?
No, that's
The one
now
Anthony Davis.
Yeah, would we sell our soul? Would Oklahoma sell their NIL soul? Maybe, but it isn't necessarily sustainable. We've seen it at basketball. You have to have a culture and a strategy for long-term performance. I think we've seen it with Sark. Clearly, that process is working.
Yeah,
he's built it over time. You have had a couple of Arch and Quinn both stand at the mountain in terms of NIL stories, right? Or NIL, whatever emphases. They're at the top, and for whatever reason, whether it's because Arch hasn't played a game or Quinn had the first $1 million offer from Ohio State or whatever it is. But outside of those two, it's been a very strategically built roster.
correct.
And I'd like to think with Oklahoma, we're seeing that same level of long-term planning that isn't completely relying on NIL. And I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, but I don't know that it's going to at Texas and Oklahoma.
I don't know if it is either, right? It's not, and again, it's not like the schools are broke and they're not offering kids anything in regards to NIL. But at the end of the day, kids want to be developed, they want to win games, and they want to go to the NFL. As long as you can offer that with some NIL, you'll be fine. Like Missouri is not going to take over college football. Again, they'll get good players. And Missouri's had good players before, right? They've had Jeremy Macklin and Trace Daniel and a lot of good players that have come through there. And that'll continue, but, Missouri is not a long-term threat to Oklahoma or to Texas, right? Our threats are each other. And then the Alabamas, the Georgias, and schools like Tennessee can always make a run, right? We know what Tennessee can be at their best. Florida, we know what they can be when they're rolling. But other than that, I don't think there's anything to stress about when it comes to NIL.
I wasn't even planning on NIL, but I think you're absolutely right. So really quick though, to wrap it back up into this basketball game, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about this game and then kind of our season as kind of the regular season winds down. First things first, as the game goes, the two big injuries that could affect it is Dylan Disu for Texas, Javian McCollum for OU. Everything I've read on McCollum is probable. I thought the team rallied around not having him on against Cincinnati, obviously. Specifically, The white boy Klansjek came in and gave some really good minutes. But even more than that, I thought Dothard was really, really good and was really good from the free throw line and just kind of keeping a cool head about himself. Um, and then Jalen Moore and Suarez really stepped up. Suarez continues to play hurt. He's on a bum ankle, but man, he's put in some good minutes. For you guys, Dylan Disu, the latest on him, if he goes and if he doesn't go, what have they been doing in absence of him?
I'm still not sure. It's been pretty quiet when it comes to Dylan Disu. So he's a player that they really need. We saw he did not play much against Baylor at all. They said he had some sort of stomach bug, and then he injured his knee. The team, listen, they came out pretty hot against Baylor, double-digit lead, really all throughout the first half and into the second half. But without him, the defense can really key on A Smith.
Yeah.
Then it starts to become a 1-on-5 type deal because nobody else on the team has been able to score consistently besides him and Dessou. So we kind of became a one-man show. Once those crazy off-balance threes weren't falling, then they really struggled. And yeah, it was a rough ending to that game. So again, I don't know, man. I don't know what the long term is. I don't know what the short term hope is. I don't know if he's going to play on Saturday. I hope he can, but man, I really don't know. Without him, they're going to really have to move the ball around, and just other guys are going to have to step up because it can't just be A Smith. He's a dynamic scorer, right? You've seen it in person when we went to that game, things he can do scoring the basketball, but it can't just be him. So they got to hope Dessou is there.
When y'all beat us at the game that we attended in Norman, it wasn't just A Smith, although he had a good game, but it was the goofy looking fella, Disu, your other big guy, 23. What's 23's name?
Dylan Mitchell.
Dylan Mitchell was an athletic freak in that game.
He's a
So
freak, man. He is.
you had a supporting cast for A Smith really step up when you played against Oklahoma. Like it was a team win. I think Disu not playing is huge for OU. But if you're Texas and you think you're in, which we both think they're in, they probably don't want to push him. I think it can go.
I mean, yeah, if he's not close to 100%, I think they should consider that.
I don't think it's do or die. Basically, I think
Yeah.
they're in.
I just wonder what they think.
Yeah.
Are they feeling that they're in or not? Because if it ends up being your last game and he's sitting out when he could have gone, then you look at that and you can really regret it.
As you look at the year, as you look at so far, if you start taking a look at the regular season, think in terms of regular season MVP. Is it A Smith or who's the regular season MVP?
I think it would be Dessou for me. I think
Okay.
he's just been the most consistent. Yeah, I think his impact has just been huge all season long. I love A Smith's his ability to score. He can score in so many ways. He can drive to the basket. He can hit the three, the step back, mid-range game. He's just a natural scorer. But DC has just been, when he's not on the court, we could just really feel it when he's not out there, even more than A Smith. So that's why I would choose Dessou.
Well, if I look at Oklahoma's MVP, for me it's between two. It's between Jalen Moore, who I just think has gotten better as the year has gone on. He was a huge leader against Cincinnati. I mean, really, really just kind of assumed that leadership role with McCollum out. But then Rivaldo Suarez has just been a stud, and he's played hurt. And you've noticed, to your point about Disu, you've noticed when he's not in the rotation, he wasn't starting originally. He basically forced Porter to have to start him because he's just that good. And I just like what he's brought to the table. Unfortunately, he's out. This is his senior year, so he's gone. But I like Suarez. I like Moore. If I had to pick one, I think I'd pick Jalen Moore. But Suarez was a really, really close player. But in terms of like
he's a freakish athlete too, man. Moore.
Well, he's a freakish athlete. He can play in the NBA, right? I don't know if he gets drafted, but he's got the body to play in the NBA.
He absolutely does. Transfer from Georgia Tech, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so clearly he's a smart kid. So yeah, man. I mean, he certainly looks the part. That's for sure.
I guess my question for Oklahoma, if I had Porter here and I was willing to ask him a very direct question, it would be what is going on with Milos Uzan? Because when Javian McCollum was out for the game, you're like, okay, Uzan's got to step up. Like this is his team. He's the point guard. Like we've got to see it. And dude, for the last 3 or 4 games, he's really been MIA. Like I just haven't been impressed with his game. And I think we really, really need him heading in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, we see that, and I can make that comparison to Texas, kind of with Dylan Mitchell. I mean, he's the best athlete on the team. He's honestly one of the best athletes in all of college basketball. Um, Potentially a lottery pick type player, but he disappears, especially offensively. He's always a good defensive player, right? He can stay in front of guys. He can defend multiple positions, but man, he just does not offer a lot offensively besides cutting to the basket and getting dunks. So that's what we've seen from him. So, you just kind of see that with a lot of college players, right? They don't have that consistency of performances over multiple games.
Well, and part of me for like an Uzan, you just wonder if like the length of the season has gotten to him because he started
Yeah.
out so strong and he was so integral to our early season success, but it's just kind of been that fade. And um, I don't know. Maybe this is a shout out to Milos, dude. Get it figured out, bro, because we need you. We need you for the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah.
He's the kind of we've seen you get in the NCAA, and at the heart of the NCAA, it's guard play. If you've got good guards in the
Always,
NCAA
man.
tournament, it's been that way since Bill Walton left. Once Bill Walton was out, like it became guard
Yeah.
play, and it's a really important thing. So if Uzan and McCollum are rolling for Oklahoma, we've got a chance in the tournament. Same thing for you with Asmus and who's your other guard?
Tyrese Hunter.
I mean, if those two dudes, especially Asmus, though, right? I mean, if he's hitting and running and rolling, but to your point, if the supporting cast is taking just a little pressure off of them, y'all could, regardless of where you're seated, you can make a run.
You can make a run for sure.
I could not find. I looked everywhere for a line for us to be able to pick this game. I cannot find a line on it. I know Oklahoma in the first game was favored 4.5 points, and we saw how that turned out. Have you seen a line on this game?
I have not. I'm going to see if I can find one real quick.
But regardless of that, here on the Boomer Bevo podcast, we do not pick OU Texas games with lines. We take our team, win or lose. So you've got Oklahoma. I mean, you've got Texas. I've got Oklahoma. Do you still have some Big Red left?
I think I got like 2 cans left.
Okay, that's all right. Save one of the cans until past Saturday. All right, I've got cans left. We're gonna do a 0 sugar Big Red bet on this game. Is that fair?
That is very.
Don't go drinking it, dude, because I'm not waiting for the next time you go to Texas.
Okay. Now, listen, I gotta confirm though before I got to confirm that I got some left in the fridge. So if I don't, I know I gotta make sure I have that. If I don't, then we'll do our normal Coke and candy bar like we do for
I'll do a Coke Zero. I can do a Coke Zero. Listen, if we win, I'll take a Coke Zero, but I really love the flavor of a Victory Big Red Zero.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Listen, I'm like hoarding those things. I bought 2 cases of just cans.
The 24 pack?
Yeah. So I've got like 48 cans.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
And then I bought 1 package of like the bottles. And I've just been, dude, I sip them, man. It's like whiskey. It's like whiskey for me. It's just sip it.
It's one of those things, man. I think you really have to be from South Texas to understand that.
Oh, dude, I was talking to this soccer dad the other day, and he was like, "What's the big deal? What's going?" No, man.
You just like don't be mad. He doesn't know.
And then only the real ones know. And then I go to talk people again from San Antonio will appreciate this. So I'm like trying to explain to this guy what Big Red is. Like this, no, this is a real deal, dude. And then I go to Taco Cabana, and Taco Cabana is now offering a Big Red margarita. And I just like took a picture and sent it to him. I'm like, I don't even drink margaritas, but that sounded amazing when I saw that. If I didn't have to drive 3 hours home from Dallas the other day, I would have probably freaking had it.
But you should have.
What's your go-to at Taco Cabana? You Taco Cabana kid when you were living in San Antonio?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I like the fajita tacos, man. You used to get one chicken and 1 steak.
Yeah, I'm just bean and cheese tacos. They're not burritos at Taco Cabana. They're tacos,
no.
And I get like 6 of them.
Yeah, their breakfast tacos were good, and they were cheap. Yeah, the bean and cheese is legit.
Taco
Yeah, no.
Cabana tried to make a run up here in Oklahoma. They just never could.
Yeah, they were on I-40, right? Kind of by the outlets.
They were on I-40 by the outlets. They had one on I-240, and then they had one down in Norman.
Really? Where was the one in Norman at?
It was on Main Street in front of Walmart. Not
Really?
yeah, Main Street in front of Walmart on 35. You would think it
Yeah.
would have just been in a great location. The problem was I never thought that they had like great management, and it trickled down to like the employees. It was never really just like spot on
Yeah.
type service, if that makes sense. Like they just didn't. I don't know. They didn't run it right. So people in Oklahoma are probably like rolling their eyes, going, "Oh, Taco Cabana, yeah, we remember." No, if you're old school San Antonio, you just know Taco Cabana is. I don't know. I love it.
Yeah, it's different.
Um, it's halfway through the show. Let's take the time to thank our sponsor, Brown O'Haver. It's starting to be storm season in Oklahoma. We're recording this on Thursday night. There's some small storms in the area. If you get hit by a large storm, tornado, or hail, you're going to want to call Brown O'Haver 405-735-5510. They adjust the insurance claim for you, not the insurance company. Typically get you 30 to 40% more than you do on your own. And I'll tell you what, if you get hit by a tornado, it sucks. And Brown O'Haver's job is to make it suck a little less. Give Brown O'Haver a call, 405-735-5510. Kevin, I didn't lead with this because I could tell your feelings were hurt when I asked you about it on the text as we were preparing for the show. But you were telling me that Arch Manning opting out of EA Sports NCAA football 2024 is a non-story. Your contention is that the number one recruit, the number one possible name in college football, especially next year, him not being in the most popular college football game of all time, over $600, is a non-story.
He's a backup quarterback who hasn't
What
played a
are you
meaningful
talking
snap.
about?
Who cares?
Oh my God.
Who
Dude,
cares? He's a backup quarterback.
exactly.
He'll
But
be
you're
in the
telling
next
me
one.
you're telling me Texas fan doesn't want to play with Arch Manning in their dynasty starting right now? Like,
No, I'm playing with Quinn.
if Arch Manning played for Oklahoma, I would be so pissed.
Now,
if he
I do
backed-
think it's a
if
little
he
weird.
backed out of it.
I think it's a little weird.
Okay,
I
that's
just
fine.
don't
I'll
care.
take weird.
Yeah.
I'll take weird. It
I
is
think it's a little
weird, dude.
weird. But yeah,
Just take it.
I
Who
don't
cares? It's fun.
Yeah. I don't think the money had anything to do with it.
Well,
But
here's
who
the
knows?
deal.
I mean, I don't know his reasoning, so I can't say that.
If you take it on an individual basis and you say, okay, $600 for Quinn or Jackson Arnold or Arch Manning or Danny Stutzman, it's not enough money. Like that's lit. It really doesn't sound like enough money, and it sounds kind of silly. But the reality is we're spreading this over like 126 teams, and you're talking about some dudes that have no business making NIL, right? So they're trying to be as fair and as reasonable as possible, and they're saying, hey, it's not about the money. You're getting a chance to be a part of a historical game that you can go back and play 10 years later with your kids and say, look, I was on, Tulsa Golden Hurricane, and here I am as the backup, running back, and I got $600 for it. I think that's kind of cool. And I think the big name players might need to maybe think about the other players when they're making those decisions. Like for Arch, is he thinking about all the other players on his team when he makes that decision? It sounds weak to me.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's a little weird, but he's a backup. Now, next year he would decide that, then I'd be like, bro, what are you doing?
Okay.
You're the starting quarterback, University of Texas. You don't be like Jordan. I mean, obviously Jordan doesn't care, but remember back in the 90s, he put on NBA Live, and you play with the Bulls, and it just be like guard number 23. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Jordan was not in any of the video games back in the 90s.
Remember NBA Jam, which was my jam. It was always a constant to figure out the cheat code to get Jordan.
Yeah.
Like it was the mythical programming cheat code to figure out what Michael Jordan was. Because who was it? Was it Scottie Pippen and?
Oh, it was like Craig Hodges or something.
That's
like
what. I think it was Craig. It was Craig Hodges or the kid from
BJ Armstrong.
BJ Armstrong from Iowa. That's who I was trying to think. It was BJ. I think it was BJ Armstrong actually.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So I get that, but yes, but also in this case, you're not Michael Jordan. You're Arch Manning on the anyway. In other Texas news, in news of I'm glad we don't have to ever play this guy again. Xavier Worthy goes 4.21
4.21. That's right.
in a 40 at the combine. Kevin, I know you knew this dude was fast. Did you know he was that fast?
No, I thought he would go low 4.3s, maybe 4.29, but 4.21. No way. I mean, when he started off, he ran that 4.25 with his first run. I'm like, oh my, 4.25? What is this? And then I heard he's gonna run it again. Because if you run a 4.25, you're standing on that 4.25. You're getting the
Absolutely.
hell out of there. And he comes back and then smokes it with a 4.21. Yeah, it's crazy. And what I like about the difference between him and John Ross, right? Did you know anything about John Ross before he ran that 4.22?
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
didn't. And I love college football. And I watched a lot. I just didn't know much about John Ross. We know Xavier Worthy can play. We know he can run routes. We know he can be what's called a run and catch guy. So he can run deep and catch a deep ball, or you can just throw him a short pass and he can break a couple tackles and go take it to the house.
Well, you got to think about what kind of short pass we're talking about. Like if it's like on the 1 yard line, you probably shouldn't pass it to him.
Well, yeah, I mean, if he gets his head ripped off,
I didn't see a
maybe.
flag. Did you see a flag?
I didn't.
Okay,
No, there was
neither
no
did
flag.
I. All I know is that he couldn't pick up a yard.
But he did
However,
get his head ripped off. I'm just saying.
on the contrary, you give him a 75-yard screen pass, and the dude runs straight at you on the very first play of the Red River rivalry, and you shake your head and say, holy crap, this dude's a true freshman, and he just took it to the house on the very first play. And he looked like he was running every bit of a 4.21 when he was running
Yeah.
straight at my face.
Yeah, man. I don't
So
know.
I will give credit. I will give credit where credit is due. But I just wanted to make, point out the obvious. He did
Well,
not
just
pick it up.
look, the Cotton Bowl giveth and the Cotton Bowl taketh away, right? We've
He was
seen incredible
dynamic in
players
that game.
have horrible moments on that field, right? Have we ever seen a player? Maybe we have, who just dominated every appearance that they've had on there. Most guys have had ups and downs on it. Baker Mayfield has, Kyler Murray has, Vince Young has. I mean, the best players. Adrian Peterson has.
Did Colt McCoy lose again?
Yeah, in 07.
Okay.
Yeah, when you guys kind of
Yeah,
unleashed DeMarco Murray on us.
Yeah, that was the DeMarco Murray hurdle the guy run. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, he was so dynamic as a freshman, redshirt freshman. And we were also in that game, Jamal Charles fumbling as he's running into the end zone, stripped by Curtis Lofton. That one hurt.
Curtis Lofton was underrated, dude. He was an underrated linebacker for Oklahoma. When we were talking about Stutzman and talking about best linebacker since, I think you could have said since Curtis Lofton, who
He was really
had
good.
a great career with the Saints.
He was
with the Saints for a really long time,
Yeah.
and he was really, really good.
He's good. When you make a play like that, stripping Jamal Charles as he's basically trotting into the end zone, that was a huge play in that game.
It looked like a basket. It looked like somebody picking the pocket of a basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He kind of like it wasn't like a ginormous hit and strip. It was more
it happened so quick.
Yes.
I was standing up cheering, and I just see Curtis Lofton in the fetal position with the football.
And then it put you in the fetal position.
Pretty much. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
That was a rough one.
Yeah. So does that get him into where I mean, so if you look at the modern NFL and you think of guys like
Are you talking about coaches?
No, I'm talking about players. I'm talking about the receiver at the Dolphins who played for
Tyreek Hill.
You're talking about Tyreek Hill. You're talking about burners.
Also Jalen Waddle, also from the Dolphins too.
Jalen Waddle. I mean, these guys are just so fast. Even Hollywood Brown has had success, not to the level of Tyreek, but has had success. So the kid at from Devontae Smith, not a very big guy, but a burner.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen what those guys can do to teams and how effective they can be in the new NFL, if you want to use that term. What does that mean for Xavier Worthy's draft stock? What is that? Where's that bounced him up to?
Again, it's going to be what that team values. Do you value that? I think the benefit he has over a lot of guys who are just fast is we've seen him be able to run routes and make plays consistently for 3 years. That's the difference between him and, like we mentioned John Ross earlier, or these guys who just show up at the 40. No one really knows who they are, and they run 4.3s. We've seen production
No, he's
from
a
him.
football. No, he's a football player. We know he's a
Correct,
football
right?
player.
Now he's
That's what we
small,
know.
right? It's 165,
Yeah.
right? So it's going to be if your team values that kind of speed at the wide receiver position, and you want a guy who can run routes and make things happen, then he can go in the first round. If not, he'll go in the early second. Is what
What's his mock? What's his mock? So where's the latest mock?
I still say middle to bottom of the first round for him.
Okay, so but sneaking in the first round.
Yeah.
Dude, if
So
he
we'll
sneaks
see.
in here's the deal, right? Though, if he goes the back half of the first round, he could go to some really good teams.
Correct. Yeah.
You think about Kansas City, their need, even though they won the Super Bowl, they were terrible at wide receiver.
Oh, the receivers were horrible. They were horrible.
How they won the Super Bowl with that group of wide receivers just blows your mind.
Man, shows you how good Mahomes is.
And so you were to throw him like on Kansas City or golly, who else? Detroit,
Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo with opposite Diggs. I mean, it could be really, really, it could be really interesting. Correct. It could be really, really interesting. And I think he made himself some money. Who else made money for the Texas Longhorns?
Well, A.D. Mitchell. Adonai Mitchell, our other receiver, right? We're thinking, okay, well, he could run in the mid 4.4s, and he ran 4.35.
Did they have a quick clock going on or something?
Man, I don't know. We just had some fast dudes this year, man. I don't know. So, yeah, I think he also kind of put himself into the first round mix at wide receiver as well. Byron Murphy was great, running I think a low 4.8 at 305 pounds. So yeah, man, we've got some dudes who are going to make some money this year. So it's cool to see, right after so many years and years and years and years of Texas not developing their players, right? We went through 3 coaching staffs who did not develop their players. Mac Brown at the end, and then Charlie Strong,
every coach after him. Yeah.
Guys. I mean, in Sark's first year, after that year, we had 0 players drafted. 0. I mean, you want to talk about negative recruiting? Easy. They had 0 players drafted, and they went 5-7. At that point, Texas the only thing they had to sell was hope in the city of Austin, right? And
he sold it, dude. He sold it.
He sold it, right? And it's working. It's working. So we'll see where it can go. Seeing this develop these guys, and now he's bringing in the kind of guys that he wants from the jump. So yeah, it's exciting to see what the future holds for Texas football. So I'm just excited to be back in that NFL draft mix again. It's been a while, man.
The future for Oklahoma football started this week with spring practice commencing. The spring game is going to be on April 20th. Storylines that came out of BV's press conference, in addition to his wife Julie not having cancer anymore, which is
outstanding news.
Which is the best news, probably the best.
Best thing I've heard all week. Let's be real.
And so that's fantastic. But outside of that, the 2 storylines that struck me is the offensive line, which I think is, it's paramount, right? I mean, we're entering a different era of football going into the SEC. Defensive line talent is going to be at another level, especially when you look at our schedule. And I think it's possible we're discounting the hire of a new defensive coordinator. I think we think that because Brent Venables is a defensive-minded coach, that it's his defense, that whoever he has at DC just happens to be a placeholder or an administrator or whatever the case may be. I'm willing to say that I don't know that that's necessarily true.
Really? Okay. Now, I've always thought that was the case. At least with Ted Roof, this is 100% BV's defense. Now, I'm wondering, tell me what you think, is if after 2 years, he's like, I need to take a step back, focus on the whole team, maybe give up or bring somebody in who has some new ideas to kind of blend with what I like to do. What do you think?
Well, I think that's exactly what I think that's a big piece of it. So I think with Ted Roof, that was exactly what it was, right? It was BV's defense and Ted Roof was the administrator. He made the trains run on time. While while BB was, tinkering and putting it in and installing and doing all the things. Well, now he brings a young guy in who knows his system. However, we're talking a tremendous amount of energy, okay? A young, dynamic defensive coordinator that is not going to be happy being a defensive coordinator. This is not a long-term guy who's reached the pinnacle of his career. This is a guy who's just starting his career. And I think of it in terms of the young defensive coordinators that we've seen go to be very successful in our sport, right? Dan Lanning. I'm not saying any of these is who's this guy's going to be, but Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart. Look, Kirby Smart, you could easily say that's Nick Saban's defense, but Kirby Smart made it his own, right? Created his own, created a brand for himself. I think that Ted Roop was never going to be that guy. That was never his role. He didn't have any aspirations for it. He had a position on the team, and it was what it was. I don't think he went and hired another Ted Roof. I think he went and hired a hungry, young, aggressive recruiter, somebody that's going to bring new ideas within the scheme, right? You don't have to reinvent the book, but he can say, hey, you know what? You're old now, dude. Let me tell you some things that have worked, that might work and we might try. The more I think about the hire, the more excited I get that BV was willing to break away from the mold. Because you could make the argument that the defense is improving, the defense has done better. But I think he's got to say, you know what, we can't cap out on this. We have to continue to get better. We still had busts. We still had things that didn't produce. We were weak in the fourth quarter, especially against teams like K-State and Kansas and Oklahoma State. And even in the second half against Texas, if y'all had one more play, y'all were going to win that game. So to me, I'm excited about that. Does that make sense? Do you see at least where I'm coming from?
I completely understand that. For sure. It's interesting. I think we mentioned this a little bit last time, but I think that you guys are going to be a better team potentially than you were last year, but your record might not demonstrate that because the schedule becomes so difficult this year.
I agree. I think, and we're going to talk about the offensive line. I think that we have a chance to be a more cohesive, a better team on both sides of the ball, play better complementary ball. I still think the over of 7.5. I'm still taking the over. I think Oklahoma football is very well positioned. If you look at the last 3 recruiting classes, you look at the transfer portal, we are not lacking in talent. All right. Yeah. And this is still a sport about talent and the dudes that you have out there. And we've added some really big name talent in the younger age. So I think that's going to keep us from just dominating this year. But I think we're going to be competing in every single game, likely with a chance to win. Especially, I think we could have a 9. I would put us at 9 wins right now.
If I had to see that. I think the reason for the 7.5 over under I really think it's just a schedule. That is, you guys have a tough. I think you had a historically easy schedule last year, and you have a historically difficult schedule this year. I mean, it's just completely like night and day when it comes to that. So you play all the best teams in the SEC besides Georgia. Whereas Texas got the opposite end of it. So, I think that's the biggest reason for the over and unders being so different between the two schools.
If Zach Alley is my optimistic tone that I took from opening day of spring football, the offensive line is my pessimistic tone, right? So if I had to make an argument to why we would win 7.5 games, or potentially go 7-5 or something like that, left tackle Jacob Sexton, sophomore, just not the experience.
Okay, so Sexton is playing left tackle for you guys this year.
Projected offensive line spring. This is OU Insider. Projected offensive line. Left guard Fabici Nawai. Please forgive me. Redshirt junior, transfer from North Texas. He's played some football, but come on, dude, we're talking North Texas. Like, not that he can't get developed, not that he doesn't have the skill. No, it just doesn't matter, though. We're not talking, And then Joshua Bates, redshirt freshman at center. Right guard Heath Ozea, redshirt freshman. Again, just not the games underneath your belt that you're looking for. Spencer Brown, senior from Michigan State. Okay, I feel better about that. That's your right tackle. I feel better with, Michigan State, big boy football, having gone up against Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. You've seen that on film. You know what you're getting there. I feel comfortable with that. But the two freshmen and then the two redshirt freshmen, we know Sexton's pretty good. Maybe he can have the same development that Caden Green had. Wait and see. But it's not like just a stalwart of talent
And
there.
I think you guys haven't beaten Bo. We know he could put some things together and make it work. The scary part for that is you can't have an injury, right? If
Well,
Sexton gets injured, I don't know
so
what the depth is like.
So actually, I was encouraged. So Tarquin is a transfer portal guy who had played at Florida and SC. So to me, that seems like, man, he's not making the starting five, means maybe he's pretty good backup. Hatchet out of Washington, who we were excited to get him, also sitting there in the wings. And then you've got true freshmen, specifically Eddie Pierre-Louis, and then three others among those, Daniel Akuname. But EPL is the one that has the potential to be able to play right away.
He's one of the best recruits in the country, right? I mean,
yeah, you know how hard it is, though, to go true freshman on the offensive line. And that was the Big 12.
It could be done, though, right? I mean, Texas had Kelvin Banks start every game as a true freshman, right? And he was one of the best tackles in the conference as a true freshman, right? I mean, this guy went up against Will Anderson, and they did not give him a lot of help and held his own, no problem. This is Will Anderson, his senior year, too, or his third year at Alabama. So it can't happen if the guy's special enough.
So, I mean, I think that that lineup I read, clearly that's going into spring. A lot of things can happen coming out of spring, and then of course going into the fall. But that's the one where you go, okay, we like our running back room. We like Jackson Arnold. We love our receivers. Upgraded at tight end, 3 players deep, right? Devon Mitchell, Bauer, all the, like, we've upgraded in all of these spaces on the offensive side. But can we make any of it go? Can we provide the protection? Can we provide the run blocking? Can we do those things that make an offense really hum and keep us on the field? It remains to be seen. I think the good news is we've got 3 relatively weak games before we jump into the SEC schedule. And then you got Beatenbow. Now that I'm positive about, but I don't know. It just when I think of spring, that's my positive. Zach Alley, my concern, offensive line.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think with Zach Alley in there, you guys are going to try to tighten up the secondary a bit. I think under Venables, one thing is pretty much guaranteed under Brent Venables' defense is going to have good linebacker play, right? You guys had that last year with Stutzman, and I thought Kip Lewis really looked good towards the end of the year. Yes. So you guys are set there. You got some depth too with Kobe McKenzie there as a rotational guy too. So you're good at the linebacker. You got a lot of talent up front on the defensive line. Guys still need to develop, right? What's PJ Adebawore going to do this year, right? Is he going to be able to become a consistent player? He's flashed, right, last year. But is he going to be able to become a guy, right? The guy that everybody thinks he can be.
Is he a guy that can give you 60% of the snaps? Because I think last year you got 20% of snaps.
Or is he a guy when he's out there, are you going to know he's out there?
Yeah.
Right? Guy, he comes, because you see that sometimes, situational pass rushers. He's going to come in on 3rd and long and really get pressure on the quarterback. Because, you don't want just Ethan Downs being responsible for getting pressure, right? You need somebody else. You want the offensive line to be able to key on him. You need somebody else to be able to be dynamic out there. With his athleticism, I'm sure he's going to be even stronger this year, more explosive. So it'll be interesting to see what he does.
So anyway, I'm excited. Listen, dude. Now, when does Texas spring football start?
Texas doesn't start until the week after next.
Also after spring break?
After spring break is when they're starting.
I don't know what the math is there.
March 21st is when they're starting.
So Is their game a little later, or is their practice
No,
schedule
it's
just a
actually
little
got moved from
tighter?
the 20. Yeah, I think the schedule just a little bit tighter.
Yeah, I don't know what the advantage is or not. I don't know that it matters.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it does either.
Real quick, we got a little bit of time left. The Oklahoma City Thunder continue to perform at a really high level. One of the concerns is too many people in the rotation heading into the playoffs. How big a problem is having too many people in the rotation for a team that's leading the
Uh,
West? Aren't they doing their things right now?
yeah, I don't think that's a problem at all. I think it's a good problem to have guys you can select from. I think they're still tinkering with lineups. They just happen to have a really deep squad right now, right? They have a lot of guys who can come into the game and make things happen. Naturally, though, the rotation does shrink when it gets to the playoffs. That's what we see historically in the NBA. So again, you just have to figure out who's my best guys, right? Who are the guys I can truly trust in these biggest moments? And it's hard to say, right? Because the team is so young that they don't have really any playoff experience. It's one of those things that I just kind of have to learn it on the fly. But I'd be curious to see what that rotation looks like once the playoff starts.
Even despite the Thunder being number one in the West, fans and media alike have to have a kicking boy or a whipping boy, I should say, for somebody to pick on. That has become Josh Giddey, who still continues to be a starter for this team, playing north of 20 minutes a game. Does it make sense in your mind to relegate him to the bench heading into the playoffs, despite the cohesiveness of the team to this point?
I don't know if they need to move him to the bench. I think sometimes we've noticed that in crunch time, he may not be out there. And for me, when it comes to the NBA, I'm more concerned at who finishes the game, who's out there when things are hectic, when it's a close game. That's what I want to see who's out there. To me, that matters more than who's actually starting the game.
Actually agree with you 100%. To me, it's not that big of a deal. We've been very productive with him in the lineup. We haven't gotten off to bad starts. There hasn't now. Will defense tighten up in the playoffs? Absolutely. Do we want them to not have? You want to be able to give SGA as much operating room as you can. So that means you need to have as many threats on the floor as you can, so that SGA is not singularly focused on from a defensive standpoint. And I think that does affect it. Him being out there does affect it. But I just think it can be more of a minute management situation and not necessarily a starting lineup. If the starting lineup is working and the rotation is working to an extent, to your point,
It
give
doesn't.
me who you're going to play in the fourth quarter. That's every bit
Yeah.
more important than who you're playing the first 5 minutes of the first quarter.
And the thing about Giddy that's interesting, I want to see, because like you said, the game slows down a little bit. The pace is not as up and down in the playoffs, right? In the half court, I think his passing ability really helps this team, right? If a guy makes a cut, I mean, he can put the ball on a dime and put
Yeah,
it.
but do they drop off or do they get more strategic in a 7 game series and uh, give him just a ton of cushion from the outside?
They definitely are because you don't. He's not the biggest threat from three, right? He's definitely the worst shooter out of the whole team when it comes to shooting threes. But his ability as a passer in the half court makes him so valuable. I don't know how that rotation is going to look when it slows down, but man, when guys are cutting, I mean, he can put the ball, I mean, right on the money where a guy can catch it and immediately go up with it. He's just the most accurate passer on the entire team,
Um,
which I know you can appreciate because you're a guy who likes that kind of offense where guys are cutting and slashing to the basketball without the ball.
well, it makes me think of the Nuggets. That's why the Nuggets are so good. Yes, they have
Because
Jokic,
yeah,
but they move when Jokic has the ball. The rest of the team moves so well without the
yeah,
ball.
and I think he's the best passer in the entire league.
Pure
In the
passer,
entire league.
regardless of
Yeah.
position.
Hmm.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
I've
And
made this.
Giddy is not like as good as him, but he has that same type of passing skill that he can throw it where you can catch it and go up with it right away.
Well, first of all, there's no comparison between Josh Giddey and
Clearly.
Nikola Jokic. So that's not what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. But
Yeah.
um, you're right. They do pass it the same. However, Jokic has a 3-point shot in addition to being 7 foot, whatever. So there's a lot of things that make him different. But what I've always likened Jokic to is like a 7-on-7 quarterback who just kind of stands there at the top of the key while people are just kind of going in and out and running up and down and making and cutting. And man, he can just pick apart a defense. It's really, really impressive. Um, despite the Thunder potentially continuing to finish really high, maybe even number one in the West, I don't see at this point why. Where would you rank them though in terms of a power ranking in your brain of who actually makes the finals? Surely the Nuggets still have your top ranking of who would
Yeah,
actually make the finals out of the West.
yeah, I would say the Nuggets still have the best chance to make the finals. Just with, well, first of all, they have the best player in the league, right? And they still have all those guys there. Jamal Murray has been able to stay healthy for the most part this season. So yeah, they just are really, really coming into form. If you look at the standings, I guess right now, technically, Minnesota has the number one seed. They have the
Oh, is it
same
that?
records as Thunder. Yeah,
Okay.
they're both 43 and 19.
Okay.
But the Nuggets 42 and 20. So I mean, they're only a half game back now. And then the Clippers are 40 and 21.
But who trusts the
So,
Clippers though? But do you trust the
you
Clippers?
know, I don't trust the Clippers, but it's funny because it's been better than I anticipated with them. I thought it was going to be a disaster with Kawhi, Paul George, Harden, and Russ all together. Russ has been hurt. He broke his hand. So I'm not sure. They think he'll be back for the playoffs, but they're playing well. Do I trust them down the stretch? No, I don't.
I mean, do
I
you
don't
still
trust them.
have?
First of all, I don't trust that Kawhi and Paul George are going to stay healthy.
Well, here's the deal. All those names you just listed, the only person in the playoffs that's ever been a consistent positive performer is Kawhi Leonard.
Correct. Yeah. I mean,
That's
he's one of
it.
the best playoff performers that we've seen, in the last decade in
100,
the NBA.
100%. Whether it was the Spurs, the Raptors, it doesn't matter. He was a fantastic, put the team on his back type player. Paul George, terrible in the playoffs for the Thunder and for the Clippers for that matter. Playoff P is playoff
Yeah.
terrible. He's
Yeah.
terrible.
The
James
two
Harden,
things.
we talked about James Harden in the last episode. He shrinks in the playoffs. He
Yeah,
becomes a shell
he's
of
one of the
himself.
worst playoff performers that we've seen from a star
And
player.
and Russ is a close second. Like
Yeah, and we
he's
love
not.
Russ, right? But yeah, man, you just never know what you're gonna
And
get
so
from
I
him.
guess maybe something changes, but I think that I would be scared of a Thunder Clippers matchup. I wouldn't. I think
No, what concerns me more for the Thunder, honestly, is a first round series against a team like the Lakers. I would
yeah,
hate that for them.
yeah, we
It
get
just
Anthony
the matchup
Davis.
doesn't. Yeah, and Hachimura, just I don't know, man. They're just really big. And LeBron. So, and obviously the Thunder are the superior basketball team. It's not even close, really. But you know how it goes. It's all about matchups. It's how you match up against that particular team. I don't love the matchup against the Lakers. Um,
The thing going in the Thunder's favor, you wish you would catch the Lakers later in the playoffs. Um,
yeah,
because because you just think that the youth of the Thunder would be their advantage later in the playoffs. Like the longer you could go in the playoffs, the more I think the youth and the energy and the athleticism of the Thunder could wear a team down like the Lakers. But if you got them in the first round, I think that the experience and the old man basketball that LeBron can bring to the table and Anthony Davis can bring to the table could really be a hindrance to the Thunder advancing. Does that make sense?
it makes perfect sense. And man, you would hate to see that, right? From a Thunder perspective, to have such a great regular season and to lose in the first round, because I honestly think this is a team that can make the conference finals at least. The Nuggets is not a great matchup, although the Thunder have played very well against them so far during the season. But man, it's tough with Jokic and those guys, Porter and Aaron Gordon. I mean, all those guys are 6'10", big dudes, athletic. So man, it's been a fun season. Let's see what they can do.
Dude, listen, they're playing with house money, man. They're playing with house money, and they're playing with a plethora of draft picks and cap space. So
Yeah,
it's like they know that they have nowhere to go but up. It's not like this is the year they have to make the run. In fact, they're ahead of schedule, and anything they do is gravy. However, expectations have now been set where you're expecting some really good things because they played so well during the regular season. But
correct.
you take a step back, nobody was expecting number one in the West.
No, I mean, I thought it might have. I picked them fourth in the West.
And they might still end up fourth. We talked about how
They could,
close,
but
but
the fact that they've been
yeah,
consistently one or two for the majority of the season, that's. I mean, nobody would have thought that going into this year. So, like you said, I think Sam Presti's like, oh, I got this plan here to build this young team. We've got all of these assets, whether it's players or draft picks, and then say, oh crap, this is working sooner than we thought.
Yeah.
I think they're probably 2 years ahead of where they plan to be.
You've got your Spurs shirt on. Right after we talked about how good the Thunder were and how bad the Spurs were, Wemby went out and beat the Thunder down in a pretty impressive matchup against Chet Holmgren. Clearly, he's Rookie of the Year, right? We're not talking about anybody else. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we both love Chet. I love Chet. You love Chet. He's gonna be great. He's already really, really good. But yeah, Wemby, and he's the fact that he's the guy. It's kind of all on him, and he's delivering, man. He really is.
The
Every
cool
time we
part,
watch him play, he does something crazy. That like how did that happen? How does he do that?
the Thunder for the longest time had a huge rivalry with Memphis when they first came into the league, or first moved from Seattle. It was Memphis was their big rival. Um, and then there for a little bit against Golden State, obviously when they were both really good. And then they kind of petered out a little bit in terms of rivalries. I think I am excited about a Spurs Thunder rivalry for years to come
Oh,
with
me
those two
too,
teams.
man. With the yeah, and especially with Wemby and Chet,
Yeah,
right? They have a chance to be the best bigs in the league. The two of them, and to think that they'll be playing each other several times a year in the same conference, potential playoff matchups. It could be like maybe Duncan and KG or Duncan and Shaq for a few years too.
and unlike Duncan and Shaq, a really similar game, right? So they will be matched up against each other. They
Yeah,
will be guarding each other for long stretches of the game because there's nobody else that can guard each other, and two, they're just so similar. It just makes sense. Sometimes you get matchups, but they don't really guard. It can be different. But these two, man, they're going to be going head to head,
yeah,
and
they're gonna
they're
be the
young.
centers for each team. Yeah, young
But now,
guys.
how much younger is Wemby though than Chet? Because Chet was at Gonzaga for a couple of years, wasn't he?
No, Chad was only 1 year at Gonzaga, but he is older. Chad is 21. Um, I think he'll turn 22 this year, whereas Wemby just turned 20. So there's almost 2 years
Yeah, that's not too bad though.
between the yeah,
I've been
it's
doing it
not.
for a long time. Kevin, OU Texas basketball March 9th for the end of the Big 12. I will miss Big 12 basketball. I
Same.
will absolutely miss Big 12 basketball. I can tell you the anticipation for football is almost too much to handle. Basketball, Kentucky,
Exactly. Yeah, Tennessee's good on Rick Barnes.
Tennessee's good. Renewing a Missouri rival, I think is good. I mean, they're terrible. Hopefully, they get better. I never thought I'd say that, but back in the day, Missouri and Oklahoma used to have a really good rivalry. Arkansas, I think, has turned into a rival for Oklahoma. We played them a lot in the non-con, so that's going to be fun to watch. But this is a very good basketball conference, and the addition of Houston, BYU, even Cincinnati, UCF, and then what they're bringing in with Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, it's going to be a tremendous
That's going to
basketball
be
conference.
great.
I
It's only
will
going to get better.
miss I will miss Big 12 basketball, miss Big 8 basketball from back in the day for even further back Oklahoma fans. So this one is kind of a little bit bittersweet.
Correct.
But that's okay.
I'll say this real quick. Even with football, I'm not going to miss Big 12 football
No.
being in the Big 12, but I am excited to watch the new Big 12 football.
Yeah, it's like a better version of the MAC. They could have games on
A bit better than
Tuesdays.
that, but
They
yeah,
could have games
I don't
on
know if it'll be
Tuesdays. It'd be
Tuesdays.
great.
I'm excited to see the new conference with Utah. I want to see how
Colorado,
Utah.
Colorado playing Texas Tech. It's going to be like watching Division
Can
II
Utah
football.
take over the conference?
I think they will already take over the conference. Yeah.
I'm curious to see it.
In football, yeah.
Yeah, in football.
I think K-State's going to continue to be pretty good for a while. And I think
Me
K-State's
too.
a good matchup with Utah. We've talked about Aranda's issues at Baylor. I don't think he's the guy, and I don't see them getting better under Aranda. TCU, I think the jury's out. Did they have lightning in a bottle for 1 year, or can their coach kind of get them back on? Can Dykes get them back going in the right direction? I don't know. I think Utah has the best coach. Cam Rising's going to be back. They got the best quarterback, highest level of talent, best culture. They have a tremendous home field advantage. People don't even realize that, but when they get that is a great environment to play football in.
Yeah.
And so,
I
yeah,
do
I mean,
think Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback, though.
who would be a better quarterback than Cam Rising? I don't mean any. Who am I
Shedeur,
missing?
Shedeur Sanders for me. For me,
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I'm a big fan, man.
Um.
Remember, he was out there running for their offensive line was horrible.
Well, I agree with that. I agree with that, and I think if you put Shedeur, let's put it this way: if you had Shedeur on Utah's team with Utah's offensive line, I think Shedeur would be the best quarterback too.
Yeah.
Like, I think that it's circumstantial. You know, it's geographic in a way that Cam's the best quarterback. But I think, you know, from a performance and efficiency standpoint over the year, I think Cam will win out over Shedeur. That's just kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I want to see what Arizona's going to do too. They got some guys back off that. They lost a lot of guys, and their
Yeah.
defensive coordinators is on Texas staff now.
Did they lose their coach though? They
Yeah,
didn't
he
lose
went to
their.
Washington.
Yeah, I don't think they. I think
Yeah,
they'll
Jed
revert.
Fish.
They'll
Yeah.
revert.
Yeah, they got the McMillan kid back, but yeah, Cowan's gone. So
Yeah,
it's
I
gonna be
think they
interesting, man.
revert. ASU's not any good. I mean, I'm half tongue in cheek. I agree with you that there could be some interesting matchups, but
Yeah, I think
did
it
you
could be a fun league, not a great league, but a fun league. You ain't gotta be fun. You ain't gotta be great to be fun.
do you think they deserve a automatic berth into the college football playoff?
Not with their current teams. No, we need to see how they look this year, but no, I don't think the likes of Texas Tech and Kansas State necessarily. No, nah, there's no real prestige there. I just think
Yeah,
it's a balance deal,
I,
because
I don't think
anybody
that
can win that league. Texas Tech could win the Big 12.
I don't think the ACC should get one either. I don't think they should get them guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
you got two schools, right? I mean, you've got Florida State, and then you've still got Clemson.
yeah, I mean
And
that's more
then
cash.
there's
That's more cash hit than anybody in the Big 12 will have.
true, yeah, and
Absolutely.
you have a bit of a fall off. I want to see what Miami's going to do, right? With they got Cristobal there,
Dude,
the
we've been
recruiting
talking
there.
about Miami for
When is it going to
5 years
happen?
coming back.
When
It's
is it going
not.
to happen?
It's not. It would have happened. It would have happened. The ACC's terrible. That
Yeah,
if they would go 10-2, you'd feel better. But they don't go 10-2, dude. They don't. They lose to
yeah.
stupid teams.
Well, they can't get their offense right, right? Like they play
No.
some decent defense, and they just these offenses that they have. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I don't get it. I don't understand Miami. I just and I don't feel bad for Cristobal. I think he's kind of a dick. That's just me.
And he does come across like that for sure,
Yeah.
and not
Kevin,
the
we've
kind
got
that wins games like Nick Saban.
well, we've talked about this. I kind of think Sarkisian's a dick too. And all that dude's done is improve your team year over year and got into
Yeah,
a college football playoff.
he's done like Cristobal.
No, he's not like Cristobal.
Yeah, he's not that type of. Yeah,
Cristobal's a bit. I don't know. He's not he's not on the list of. Like for me, like Norvell. I dig Norvell at Florida State.
oh
I think
yeah,
that guy's
yeah,
great.
like
I
Norvell
think
too.
he handled not making the playoffs as well as anybody could have.
Yeah,
Like he wasn't apologetic about it. He didn't act, but he also didn't sound like a bunch of sour grapes either.
yeah,
Like,
correct. It just kind of was what it was, man.
yeah.
Man, so unlucky with that Jordan Travis injury. So unlucky.
Do you think that they'd have still been out with Jordan Travis, even if they'd have had Jordan Travis?
No, I don't think that. I don't think so. I think they would have put him in undefeated with a starting quarterback still. I think they'd have put him in
You think Texas was out in that scenario?
probably. I'd have been fine with it, honestly. I mean, it would have sucked, but I mean, undefeated Power Five
They were
conference
still
champion.
undefeated power. They were still undefeated Power Five. I mean,
Yeah,
they
but
really.
you saw that Louisville game. That
Yeah, I
backup
know.
quarterback. It's just too sloppy, man.
I don't know that we need to rehash it, but my point was, yeah, they did. They beat Louisville in a conference championship game with their third string quarterback. That's how good they were.
I agree. Yeah.
Is Jordan Travis back for them?
No, I think he's out of eligibility. I think he's going to try to go to the NFL.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't
All
know who
right.
their quarterback's going to be this year.
Kevin, we've gone. Yeah, everybody else transferred. Kevin, we're going long here. We got to get
College
great.
football, man. We can't help ourselves.
Dude, I love it so much. I love the spring balls here. Hopefully, we'll have you more updates next week. We'll know what's going on in the Big 12 tournament by this time next week. We'll know a lot more than we know now about everything. Kevin, have a great night. Boomer!
Okay.